How to Eat Fried Worms by Thomas Rockwell. Chapter 15, 3:15 a.m. His mother reached out and switched on the light. What kind of pain, Billy? He stood beside the bed, clutching his stomach. In my stomach. Oh, there it goes again, I think. Did you eat something before bed? She was pulling on her bathrobe. John. She shook her husband's shoulder. He mumbled sleepily. Did you eat candy or something before bed, Billy? Worms, groaned Billy. Worms? John, Billy, what kind of worms? Regular worms, night crawlers. She felt his forehead, lifted his chin to look in his face. You don't have a temperature. How many worms did you eat? 5, 2 boiled and 3 fried, with ketchup, mustard, horseradish, salt, pepper, butter to make them taste better. Fried? Ketchup? Taste better? John, wake up! I had this bet with Alan. Oh, he groaned. Take your hands away. Where does it hurt now? Show me. It doesn't really hurt so much now. It's just rumbling and gurgling, something awful. Then why are you groaning? Asked his father, sitting up. Because I'm afraid it's going to start hurting. Do you think I'm going to die, Daddy? Worms? His father asked. Ordinary worms? Earthworms? Billy nodded. And how many did you eat this evening? 1 this afternoon. I've eaten 1 every day for the last 5 days. But they weren't little ones. They were night crawlers, huge ones, as big as snakes almost. His father lay back down, pulling the covers up around his shoulders. Don't worry. Eating 1 night crawler a day for 6 weeks wouldn't hurt you. Go back to bed. It's probably all the ketchup and mustard that's upsetting your stomach. Drink a glass of warm water. John, are you sure? Asked Billy's mother. It doesn't seem to me that worms could be a very healthy thing to eat, John. His father snuggled deeper under the covers. I didn't say eating worms would turn him into an all-American fullback. I just said they would not hurt him. Now let's go to sleep. Billy's mother glanced at Billy, shivering beside the bed in bare feet and pajamas, and then shook her husband again. John, wake up. I think you should call Dr. McGrath. You don't really know whether or not eating worms is harmful. I know you don't. Billy's father groaned and sat up. Now look, I'm not going to call Dr. McGrath at 3:30 in the morning to ask him if it's all right for my son to eat worms. That is flat. Secondly, I do know that Billy's not going to die before morning. If worms were poisonous, which they're not, he would have been laid up before this time. Billy, you've been eating worms for 5 days? Billy nodded. All right. And thirdly, I ate a live crayfish when I was in college and have suffered no discernible ill effects. And fourthly, I am going to sleep. Billy's mother slipped her feet into her slippers, stood up and buttoned her bathrobe, and then leaned over the bed and shook her husband's shoulders. John, I won't be able to sleep until you call. John, what about tapeworms or fungus? John, wake up. Billy, you go back to bed. Your father will call Dr. McGrath. John. Billy lay in bed listening to his mother and father arguing in the bedroom. He could only make out a word here and there, usually when his father started to shout, only to be shushed immediately by his mother. Billy got sleepier and sleepier. His stomach had stopped rumbling and gurgling. It was warm and cozy under the covers. After standing on the cold floor in his bare feet, then in the midst of a foggy drowse, he heard someone dialing the phone in the hall outside his parents' bedroom, and then his father say, "Poison control," and explain the case. Then there was silence. Billy heard the water running in the bathroom. And then his father said, "You're sure? These weren't little ones. These were night crawlers. And no long-range ill effects?" His father laughed. "I bet, I think." And the next thing Billy knew, sunlight was streaming through his window, and Emily was skipping down the hall past his door singing, Half a pound of twopenny rice, half a pound of treacle. That's the way the money goes. His father shouted down the stairs, Helen, do you know where my green tie with the red stripes is? The sixth worm. Billy gulped it triumphantly, serene, untroubled. By the door, Alan glowered, his mind racing. He's going to do it. He'll win. What'll I do? $50. Joe sat on an overturned pail, whistling, gazing carelessly about, sneaking a glance now and then at Billy. What had gone wrong? Why hadn't he cracked? Outside, Tom lurked sheepishly in the bushes behind the stone wall, peering at the barn. The seventh worm. Billy ate it offhand, sideways, reading a comic book. Alan and Joe squatted glumly in the barnyard, watching him. As Billy was daubing horseradish sauce on the last bite, Tom's head appeared in a corner of the grimy window. He waved tentatively at Billy. Ignoring him, Billy gulped down the last bite, wiped his mouth, and tucking his comic book under his arm, strode airily out of the barn, remarking over his shoulder, See you tomorrow, fellers. The eighth worm. Where's Joe? Asked Billy, spreading mustard down the length of the fried worm. He wouldn't come, said Alan sullenly. It's no fair putting on that much mustard. Ha ha, said Billy. Who says? I can put on as much as I like, or whatever I like, and you know it. Why wouldn't he come? How should I know? Billy swooshed a bit of worm around in ketchup and horseradish sauce. I know why he didn't. Yeah, you're so smart. Big deal. Alan couldn't get the $50 out of his head. What was his father going to say when he told him he had bet $50 and lost? Ugh, he nodded his thumbnail. He wouldn't have come because he knows I've won. He knows I could eat 20 worms if I had to. Yeah. Well, you ain't won yet. There's still 7 to go. You act so big. What'll you begin to feel it in your stomach? You think you know everything? Yeah, you'll see. You wait. Ha ha, said Billy. You think you can scare me talking like that? Phooey. He strolled past Alan out into the sunlight. Hi, said Tom, popping up from behind a barrel, said Billy disdainfully, and walked on. The ninth worm. That's not a worm, yelled Billy. How can it be a worm? Geez, it must be 2 feet long. It's a worm, said Alan stubbornly. It's just like all the others. I rolled it in cornmeal and fried it. It's over 2 feet long, screeched Billy. He knew something was up. Otherwise, Joe wouldn't have come back, slouching in the doorway, pretending to be gazing up at the clouds. But Billy noticed. He kept glancing at Alan and him, and Tom was peering in the window again. Something was up. Look, said Alan, I'll cut it. You can see for yourself. It's a worm. There, see? Come on, eat up. We ain't got all day. Joe and me have to go to Shushan with his father. Billy poked at the huge worm with his fork. Something sure was up. He ate the piece Alan had cut, looking the rest of the worm over carefully as he chewed. He ate another bite. Ugh! He'd forgotten to dip it in the horseradish sauce. Come on, said Alan. Yeah, said Joe. Eat up, Billy. We gotta go. I'll never be able to eat this whole thing, thought Billy. It'd choke me. It's too much yuck at once. Half, he croaked. I'll eat half. This is some sort of ringer. There's never been a worm this long. Okay, said Alan. Then the bet's off. Suit yourself. Come on, Joe. He's chickened out. Let's go. All right, said Billy, playing for time. The whole thing? You'll make yourself sick, said Alan. He's too anxious, thought Billy. What's going on? Leave him alone, said Joe. Let him eat it. It's his stomach. He's trying to cover for Alan, thought Billy. He ate another bite. Then he began to scrape the cornmeal carefully off the worm with his knife. What are you doing? I think I'll have it plain today. No cornmeal. That's not fair. You can't. Glue, screamed Billy all of a sudden. Glue. You glued 2 crawlers together. Geez, you bunch of lousy cheats, Tom. Tom, look what they tried to pull. Glue. Panting, Tom bent over the plate. You're right. Jeez. Alan kicked a pail, clattering against the wall. I told you it wouldn't work, he screamed at Joe. All right, so it didn't work. You couldn't think of anything better. That's cheating, said Billy. I ought to win right now. You cheated. 15 worms in 15 days, yelled Joe. You ain't won yet, but you cheated, shouted Tom. So what? They argued and yelled, striding here and there about the barn, sprawling against posts, flinging up their arms, kicking walls, banging down on a pail or orange crate, and squeezing their heads between their hands. Doesn't make any difference, Joe yelled at Billy. It didn't work. You didn't fall for it. If you'd eaten the whole thing and then found out it was 2 worms together, then you could have claimed to win because Alan was cheating. Big mouth, shouted Alan from the horse stall where he was kicking the slats in. Who thought it up? Not me. Who cares who thought it up, shouted Tom. It's still cheating. A pig looked in at the door and then wandered away. Joe ran out and stuck his head under the faucet by the kitchen steps. A minute later, he came running back, dripping, yelling, That's not true. What's not true? Said Billy, turning around from shouting at Alan. Whatever you said. What did I say? It doesn't make any difference. You're a liar and a cheat, and so anything you say isn't true. You're crazy. Even Hitler or Jack the Ripper sometimes said things that were true. It's impossible to lie all the time. Behind them, Tom lay down on his back and said, Ugh. Alan and Joe and Billy turned to look at him. What is the matter with you? Arr! Arr! Silence. A bird flew in and then out through a broken window in the loft. Well, said Billy. Yeah, I see what you mean. He and Alan and Joe sat down on the overturned orange crates. After a while, Joe said, Anyway, I was right. If Billy'd eaten it, it would have been cheating. But he didn't, so it's not. The bet's still on. The pig looked in at the door again. A pig's loose, said Alan. Look. Where? Said Billy. Oh boy, come on, we gotta catch it. He jumped up. The pig bolted. Whee! Yelled Billy, dashing out. Tom and Joe and Alan scrambled after him.